Welcome, 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 everybody. See, we got smooth there. Now we actually have this like launch point.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Right.
The banter is gone.
Right. It's not the same as, we're just talking and then halfway through a conversation you just click start and
Just click
suddenly
start.
I'm on air and
We've started.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, we've started. Yeah, that's true. We've kind of missed we've missed the spontaneity that we once had, but that's okay.
we'll be spontaneous today.
Oh, it'll be spontaneous. We haven't talked about this at all. There has been zero talking. And you will, by the way, please do sound off in the comments. Make sure that we hear from you because there's a lot of stuff going on. We got a lot of new tech and a lot of different things happening that we want to make sure we're keeping an eye on. So let us know. Hop into the Rumble, to the YouTube chat or anywhere else and make sure we see you. Sound off. So, yeah, that's it. We're going to dive right in here. We've got a few different things. Before we do, let me remind you, go to phyllisschlafly.com. Sign up for the email list. You will not be disappointed. Wherever you are, like, share, and subscribe, please. It is super helpful to the algorithms, and also it lets us make sure we stay in touch with you. And then last but not least, go and find this on social media. Hit the share button. Follow us. You will not be disappointed. Likewise, there's some fun stuff that goes on over there, and you never know. Come on over, pick some fights with people in the comments. That's what the internet's all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're supposed to do now. So yeah, that's that. That's all the places you should go and follow and like and share and subscribe and make sure you sign up for the email. But
Yep.
it's noon. It's Caucus Day.
Yeah. And
What do we do?
this week we don't have one subject. We actually have a few subjects, and both of us only know what half of them are. Because as you saw in the title, we're doing dueling headlines again. We did this a couple weeks ago. We both pick a few headlines a few articles that the other one doesn't know about. And I don't think we have a point system. We joked about a point system last time, but we still haven't. We're still workshopping the point system idea. We'll just say, we're both winners this week, no matter what happens, and maybe next time we do a point system.
We'll see about that. I don't know if there's a need for points. Oh, but we are nonetheless marching along. Well, I tell you what. Why don't you go ahead and go first? There's a lot. Long story short, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. And everything that I was thinking about changed since we first talked about this. By the way, if anyone sees me, chewing on something or with something in my mouth and constantly, it's not pills, it's cough drops, people. I'm just trying to keep the tickle from interrupting the live stream. But
yeah, the CIA has a new vector of attack on you specifically.
New bioweapons. Mm-hmm. So individual targeted bioweapons. That was in some TV show. I forget what it was. You can target someone via their DNA.
Yeah, that's real life now.
Blacklist or something. I know. That's what it feels like. Well, it is. It is real life. Anyway, I saw it on TV. Oh, boy. But, all right. Go ahead and take it away. What's one of the things that hit you most this week that we should talk about?
Okay, so one thing that this is the one I think is less likely to be overlapping with what you talked about. This is an article out of Politico. Tech giants pledge to fight AI deepfakes ahead of elections. And it's discussing how all these different big tech companies like Meta, Facebook, TikTok, the main social media platforms are cooperating with the European Union, which is probably about to pass legislation mandating that any AI-generated images or videos or audios must be clearly labeled. So, going into an election year, the powers that be think this is very important because, as most people probably forgot by now, but it's important to remember that a couple weeks ago, right before, I think it was the New Hampshire primary, there was a deep fake Joe Biden calling people and telling them not to vote, which is hilarious. That's some great trolling. Whoever did that, good on you, even though that you're probably going to get caught and put in jail for election interference, conspiracy, and whatever else they can throw in the book. But yeah, and at first thought, I'll give a little bit of my thoughts, but I want to hear what you think about this, because my impression is like, okay, it's good to have truth and transparency and accuracy of information. But then I think of like Snopes fact checkers and people like that, where it's like you're fact checking, but you are just feeding into the regime, the narrative. And I don't know how, but I feel like there is going to be some way where they're going to use this to suppress anybody that has a dissident opinion towards what the regime wants us to think, whether it's in Europe or in the United States. that's kind of my thoughts about it. Like, it seems good on its face, but I really feel like this is not going to turn out well.
Yeah, I think you're right. So well, first of all, this is still the honor system. It has to be written, like, someone has to agree to abide by this rule. Like, that's scary in and of itself, because the whole point is that the technology is now beyond the actual limits of us to control it to an extent. Like, if someone wants to be surreptitious with it, they can. But I mean, this is one of those. Well, we talk about it a lot of times here. The distrust and verify. This is something Ed talks about quite a bit. This is making that whole realm incredibly difficult.
Right.
I'm extremely torn. There might be a whole episode on AI that we need to dive into and do, because we're at the point where can you even believe your own eyes?
Right.
And it's, I don't know. I think that I don't know. I'm really torn.
Yeah.
I'm really torn on this one, because it's something that needs to be done. There's accountability that needs to be put down there, but how are you going to move forward and march through legislating this kind of technological advance? We're witnessing something that we haven't seen in several generations, some kind of leap that I don't quite know how to wrap my head around.
Right, and it's really blurring the line between truth and falsehood
Right.
online. Because I think one of the, because everybody's probably seen by now, like, there were those videos of, like, you had Joe Biden and Donald Trump playing Minecraft together,
Right.
and those were pretty funny, but and stuff like that, it's a joke. But as the visual AI gets better,
Right.
of, like, being able to manipulate somebody's face, that's, and I've seen videos of Joe Biden like that. I've seen videos of Trump like that, saying things that they haven't said. But one of the strangest ones I saw was from one of those terrible, giant gimmick accounts on X, posting, like, historical videos. It was like, this is like Boston in 1960, and the video looks real, and most people thought it was real. But then somebody was like, okay, go to this exact timestamp and, like, look at this part of the screen, and you, like, see a kid's hand phase through another kid, and but it all looked real. It looked exactly like the kind of videos you see from that time.
It really is. It's especially in a world where we are concerned about the narrative being pushed from the top down. This is something that, how do you even control now that they can not just manipulate the information by what they do and don't actually show you, but what they show you can be manipulated. What you respond with can be manipulated. This is information warfare that is going to really yet take form here. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I think there is a healthy example of well, this is one of the healthy examples for why I think tech companies ought to be subject to some different forms of regulation. Normally, I'm a pretty hands-off, limited government conservative, but we're dealing now with technology that can almost alter the perception of reality itself.
Right.
And that is right up in line with communications platforms being public utilities rather than private companies. Like, all of those arguments that come into line. We're in a place now where there has got to be some public accountability. And I don't know exactly what that is or what that looks like, but there has to be. We can't just let it run free and be the Wild West. It's not possible, especially when there are, again, bless his heart for buying Twitter. Thank you, Elon Musk. But he wants to put Neuralink chips in people's brains.
Right.
I'm out. Like, this is one of those next level. Nah, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I like your free speech stuff, but I'm not quite sure about that.
Right.
This definitely has to have some sort of regulation in check, because you can't just trust the good nature of everyone. Man does not have a good nature. You and I come from the same worldview. We have it. Man is not good at the core.
Right.
That we are fallen, sinful creatures in need of restriction. So that in my mind, there is some path forward that the U.S. needs to carve regulatory wise for AI. I don't quite know where it sits, but it's something that we're going to have to deal with now before it's beyond control, because we're already getting to the point where some of the ticks of AI are disappearing, and it gets more and more real all the time.
Oh yeah, it's crazy to look at the difference between AI generated images from a year ago when they were first kind of popping out there, where everybody's eyes are kind of messed up and everybody has like 17 fingers, versus now they look more real than real life.
It's been fast. It's been really fast that the technology has advanced. Now, on AI itself, I don't actually think that we're like coming near some sort of place where machines become sentient and
the
take
singularity.
over. That's not really in the realm of possibilities right now. Maybe at some point in the future it could be, but I look, as I've tried to wrap my brain around as much as I can, that's just not there. for at least now. But what we are looking at is mankind using incredibly good digital manipulation to manipulate mankind. That's the real danger, because the technology is absolutely stunningly good. So this kind of legislation is going to come up more, and we're going to need to tackle that sooner rather than later. I wish that Republicans, conservatives, would be proactive in doing these kinds of things correctly here, because it's going to have to be dealt with. It's going to have to be done in some form or fashion. It's coming. So I really hope that Congress is proactive in a good way. The good members of Congress are proactive in making sure we figure out how this is going to be regulated, because there's no way it doesn't get regulated.
Right. Right, and it really, I mean, it kicked into high gear with like the Taylor Swift AI images, and that got their attention, surprisingly. Not the fact that it can, like, disrupt truth in the political process.
Who, by the way, won the big game.
Yep.
The big game, yeah.
Congrats.
Did you see the 13 conspiracy thing?
No, I didn't.
Oh my gosh, there was so much stuff out there on the internet about 13 that, like, this was Taylor Swift's 13th Grammy that she's won, and then this was, I don't even remember, but it was numbers about players in the game and both the teams, and like there was so many stats and numbers that added up to 13. It was one of those weird coincidental, I'm going to call it coincidence, because I'm not quite sure that there's some sort of, that one was a bridge too far, but I enjoyed the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So anyway,
if you're posting about that unironically, you might want to look into medication.
I would suggest that, because it was, there's a lot of coincidences. There's a lot of coincidences.
There are a lot of coincidences.
There's a lot. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so that happened. But the Taylor Swift AI images really did kick off the whole, like, the latest round of discussion about how this works. So that's a big one. That's a big one that's coming for the U.S., and it's going to be bigger than, looking at just regulating big tech and censorship, which is definitely something that we've already barely knocked the door on.
Right.
So.
Well, let's hear one of your first articles.
So I have more than two.
Oh wow.
But we're not going to go into all of these. I have more. There's a couple of articles that all come back to the same point. So one of the things that we haven't talked about yet, but has come out really since we've last talked on this program, which, by the way, the chat's not working today on YouTube, at least on my end here administratively. So hop over to Rumble if you're wanting to get in on it, or maybe the chat's just quiet today.
Yeah.
That's fine if it is.
Listening.
Hopefully everyone can actually hear and see us, because, again, we're changing a lot of tech stuff week to week back here. But one thing that came out was, and I want to straighten this out, and then we're going to talk about it just a bit. A report came out into Biden's handling of classified documents, and essentially the report basically said that we're not going to recommend criminal charges against President Biden for mishandling classified documents. But the reason is what has circulated all over the internet. The reason is because they basically called him a senile old man who would not stand up to the scrutiny of, you tried to do the wrong thing on purpose in court.
Right.
Literally, the Department of Justice made this judgment and wrote it down about the President of the United States. And the words that they used were, Biden is a, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. That's the man in charge of our country with the nuclear codes at his hip.
Yep.
So there's been because again, this just kind of took off like wildfire, so I wanted to back up a minute and make sure that everyone understood exactly what we're talking about. The Department of Justice, Biden's Department of Justice, has called him a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. And then, of course, it went on from there. But, I mean, based on their direct interactions, they said he's someone from whom many jurors will want to identify reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury they should convict him, by then a former president well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. So this is one of those things where it's like it's a glitch in the Matrix, to use that Matrix analogy.
Yeah.
To me, we are starting to see cracks where, oh my gosh, like these guys really are just propping up public figures, but there's this apparatus that obviously keeps them going.
Right.
Like here, the Department of Justice is covering for a doddering old man is basically the bottom line of what it looks like. So is the doddering old man really in charge of everything? Well, he can't be.
Right.
And they even recognize, essentially, to me, this says we know he's not in charge. But no, this, that, and the other. And it moves on. It's like, wait a minute, but this is the deja vu thing in the Matrix movie. This proves that there's all this other stuff that's a facade.
Right.
Let's talk about it. I feel like we're starting to see these more and more and more. Here's my question for you. as stuff like this happens, whether it goes across election integrity or the Biden administration itself, do you think that this and other things like it are a big enough crack in the armor this year to make the American populace give this landslide opposition electorally that's even overcoming any kind of electoral shenanigans they could pull? What do you think? Is this enough? Is this the beginning of enough?
I would say maybe, because you think about presidents that have been in extremely poor health before, specifically FDR, and he was a wartime president, but like for his final term, he was like practically a corpse, and gave the shortest inauguration speech ever. Like he was a vegetable pretty much. And like Joe Biden isn't that bad yet, or Woodrow Wilson, another wartime president, also like in extremely bad health. I don't think he tried to run for a third term while he was in extremely bad health, but he ended his second term just like barely functioning as a human being, and anybody who encountered him was like, oh, this guy is not okay. But people still voted for him for a third term, even though they were kind of like, I don't know if you can do this, and I don't even know if you're alive. So with Joe Biden, one of the biggest differences is we have mass media and cameras, and anybody can take a video of him and shoot it up on TikTok or YouTube, and it's going to be on the news, and that's one of the biggest differences. I think that I would definitely say yes to your question if he got in a debate with Trump, because it would just be a mess.
So you think there's not going to be a single debate this year? Trump's the nominee. We'll just postulate this out, which at this point is happening. Trump's the nominee. Biden's the nominee. There will not be general election debates.
I think they're going to keep that from happening.
I think so too.
I
can't imagine a world in which it does. I mean, the last time was bad enough. I think it was very. Well, Trump was nicer than he.
Yeah.
He was nicer than he was to Hillary, which was interesting. At least I thought so. I expected, the vicious knife hand to come out, but he didn't. So
Biden didn't even know where he went to college in the 2020 debates. He was just like completely out of it. And
and to the point of what we're talking about here, we just this week, as this stuff has come up, the White House has just gone into like crazy screaming, oh my goodness, get us out of this mode, trying to not talk about this. And it's really pretty funny because there's at least at one point Biden came out to address it himself, and he talked about how how dare they say I don't know anything and I don't died, and was it a bracelet or a watch?
He had the
I got this rosary from and then he couldn't even remember, and he just moved on. And it was just like, oh my goodness, even in the explanation, we sent him out to explain, how dare you say I don't remember things, and he couldn't remember.
I don't think anybody sent him. I think he went out. No advisor in their right mind would send him at that point.
Right. At this point, it's so apparent that this is a farce. This is all just a charade. Like, this is not the person in charge. Don't tell me this is the person in charge. This wasn't the person that won the election. This wasn't the person that went into the White House to be in charge. This is not the person who is wielding power in the executive branch. Like, this is the chink in the curtain is cracked open, and we can see the wizard, and the wizard ain't Joe Biden. That's if this story, this kind of thing has got to be shared. Yet they are sympathetic side of the right side, right-leaning, right-minded side, but they haven't quite made the red pill leap of, wow, there really is this permanent apparatus that maintains itself throughout institutions, throughout every presidential administration. It just kind of keeps going and maintains its own power. Well, someone doesn't believe that. This is the kind of thing that goes, wow, maybe that really is there. People need to understand exactly what all this means, know that it happened, and then understand what it means.
Well, I think what the cope the leftists give is, I'm pretty sure that the prosecutors interviewed him on October 8th. So they're like, oh, he was very stressed out about the Israel situation and trying to figure out how to deal with that. That is what they were saying.
They'll try to throw up excuses, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the man who has access to the most sensitive intelligence sources, methods, and everything in the United States of America is, as they said, a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. Unfit for command.
Yeah.
Unfit to serve.
Right.
As President of the United States.
They're saying that he is unfit to stand trial, but he's fine enough to be president. Whereas
you're right. They did literally say he is unfit to stand trial.
Right.
Wouldn't happen.
But with Trump, they were saying, oh, he is way too mentally incompetent to be president. They were saying this in 2020, 2019. They were like, oh, this man's cognitive decline, the medical people are saying there's no way he can, remain in office. He is unfit to remain in office. And then 3 years after that, they're like, okay, now let's drag him into every single court across the entire and you can talk about double standards all you want, but I mean it's as simple as they have different standards for themselves than they do for us, and they are in charge.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big thing that happened.
Yep.
That we needed to talk about. What's your next one?
My next one is
Dueling headlines.
Well, okay, so
they're not dueling actually. Like I made it, I got you hyped up. You were excited to come in here. You thought we were gonna fight. We never know. We haven't gotten to the headlines yet.
We could find something we disagree on.
That's true.
Honorable mention to Tucker, who interviewed Putin.
Honorable mention? No, I'm kidding. That wasn't my next one, but that is an honorable mention.
I think that leads into my next one, where Putin had an interesting moment in that extremely long interview where he talks about how it's when they brought up the Nord Stream pipeline and Putin accused Tucker of blowing it up, which I'm not sure about that, but Tucker, why don't you release it? And Putin explains that it is extremely hard to win a propaganda war against the United States, which he's definitely correct. He's correct on that. I don't know if he's correct that the U.S. or the CIA was responsible for blowing up Nord Stream, but he is correct that we do have the most successful propaganda apparatus in the entire world. Because how else would we have won both world wars and the Cold War? We are better at shaping opinions than any other civilization in history. That is why there's people that believe absolutely deranged things today and think it's totally normal. So news came out yesterday, I believe, that could very well be real news or could very well be part of the United States' extremely successful propaganda regime.
By the way, my side note, go and watch this on his YouTube channel. It's well worth your time. So over 2 hours resting. It's very, very, very interesting to see. Go watch it. Very well worth your time. Sorry.
Well, so 3 days ago, was it Monday morning or Tuesday morning, that the Senate passed the Ukraine funding, but it was, dead on arrival pretty much. The House doesn't like it. Later that day, or the next day, international security threat from Russia. I have this headline from a Washington Examiner: U.S. fears Russia preparing to put nuclear weapons in space. It's like, okay, what? That's like Star Wars, Are they building the Death Star? What is going on here? It's supposedly Russia is establishing some kind of infrastructure to where it's in space that would be able to wipe out the satellite systems of rival countries. And I'm immediately skeptical of this because Russia is already, knee deep in Ukraine, fighting that war, and has the entire world kind of pitted against them. Why would Russia want to deploy nuclear weapons into space to, start attacking the rest of the West when that's in a way that doesn't make strategic sense to me,
right?
Unless they know something that we as civilians don't, unless there's some serious conflict brewing. But I don't see that. I don't think that's going on.
No, here's my take, and we talked about this actually. Those faithful listeners also, not just of this very unauthorized caucus, but of the more authorized Pro America Report radio program. Subtle slide. Go listen to the Pro America Report with Ed Martin. We talked about that on the program this week because it is extremely convenient to me that they can't get this through the House and Senate. They can't get it through Congress. Finally, the border stuff, we can't figure out a border bill. Well, it's because you keep jamming non-border stuff in there. So we finally just disband with all of it and say, fine, we'll just pass the foreign aid bill instead of the border bill, because that makes a lot of sense. So they passed the foreign aid bill in the Senate, despite some strong opposition from a lot of the new-coming senators, which we noted that was very interesting. Every Republican senator under 55 voted against the bill, and all but one senator elected since 2018 voted against the bill. All but one Republican, all but one senator voted in since 2018. So very, very, very interesting. There's a new breed of people coming in saying, no, this is not what we're here for. You won't even address the border. We won't deal with our domestic issues. We're not going to talk about anything else outside. But that all comes up, and immediately we know it's going to go to the House and be dead on arrival. We have to have a reason. Strategic threat from Russia. In my mind, this is yet another manufactured reason to shove this forward. No, see, because we have to give the money to Ukraine. We have to do it. It's in our own national security. It's not national security now. I would bet a major amount of money that this is all wrapped up in that. And it's because they're still running circles around. And this actually ties into one of my articles that I had that I wasn't sure if I was going to go with. But this is the continuing fight over the Russiagate files.
Yeah.
Like, the intelligence community is trying to classify with, journalists like Matt Taibbi who are going after this stuff, trying to no, hide it. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to manufacture a crisis.
Right.
We need to actually have a national security reason, because that's always the reason. Oh, we can't declassify that. People will die. It's the same answer always.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's not an actual national security answer. It is. But they always give that excuse to not declassify stuff. And this is why we don't have the JFK files. There is always an excuse. And you finally reach a certain point where it's like, tell the truth.
Right.
Let it out there. So I am confident that any of the threat stuff that is coming up, I would be very certain. I'm trying to figure out how to be certain but hedge all of my words.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that there's just nothing to it except the intelligence community, the IC, is how it gets, there's your lingo for the day. NIC, National Intelligence Community, IC is Intelligence Community. This is them covering the trail of the Russiagate stuff, simultaneously trying to justify the military-industrial money going through our military-industrial complex and then over into Ukraine, which is an absolute, at this point, losing battle. I mean, it's incredible when you look at it. And this isn't just pro-Putin talking points. Like, it really
that is a sinkhole of money.
It's a sinkhole of money. It's over. It's toast. And we are pumping money into it, and people are talking as if it's the next World War, like saving France from Germany, and it's nowhere near that kind of situation at all. And yet we're throwing money at it, but they won't even talk about enforcing the current laws on the books down at the border.
Right.
It's also very purposeful. It just makes you, makes you want to vomit, because it is.
Right.
It's so extremely purposeful. I would put all the money in the world the fact that this is a distraction. That's my go-to on that. Anything now that comes out about Russia being a strategic threat to the United States, I'm not saying that they're our friend. I'm not saying that. But our intelligence community is lying to us about that. I would bet money, because they are trying to cover their tracks and give a cover reason to shove the money through and to keep the machine going.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah, no, I think that's I'm in agreement. Sorry, viewers that wish we would disagree more.
Well,
But
there's a good one, though. You want to learn more about this and about the part of it that I mentioned, go follow Matt Taibbi on Twitter or on X at MTAIBBI, at MTaibbi on Twitter. He's one of the guys who is pulling out files like crazy. That Twitter feed is absolutely incredible. 2 million followers. He's grown a lot since he started getting some notice, but he pulls an incredible amount of stuff from the intelligence community, particularly. It's worth your follow. And do you have to have an X account now to get in and see a page publicly?
I'm pretty sure you do.
Okay,
yes.
yeah, that's been closed down. You used to be able to get to it without it, but it's well worth your signing up for X just to get to Matt Taibbi's page, because there's a lot of transparency going on there. A lot. So, my honorable mention is buying America's second largest radio chain. Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Because the number one radio chain in America is iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
iHeartRadio.
Yeah.
Owns massive network of stations all across the country. Number two is owned by Odyssey, which has been bleeding money and basically going bankrupt for a long time. Well, George Soros has now bought in over $400 million of debt from Odyssey. Basically, he is about to take the majority stake in the second largest chain of broadcast radio stations in America during an election year. George Soros, one of the primary left-wing political forces across the globe, is buying likely to buy the second largest chain of broadcast radio stations in America in an election year.
Yeah.
And no one, this is
the first I'm hearing of this.
This is one of
That's
those.
Crazy.
Are you kidding?
Right.
That's nuts. This is
Right.
this is huge. This has some massive old signals like New York City's WFAN. Also 1010 is a big AM signal over there. Los Angeles KROQ. These are like old school standards that have been around for a long time. Huge, massive radio stations. And of course, that's into deep blue territory, both of those.
Right.
But still,
I mean,
it is just locking up
yeah.
media into fewer and fewer and fewer and fewer hands. Like
Right.
so much, almost everything is owned by the same people at this point. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting because talk radio, aside from those deep blue stations, talk radio is extremely predominantly conservative. Like extremely. You really only find liberal radio hosts being aired in big cities.
Right.
And that's really it. So it'll be interesting to see if Soros changes that. There's still going to be competition, and it's not like conservatives who are, on a long road trip in the middle of nowhere are going to
Right.
tune in to Soros radio when they still have the other radio station that's playing
Right.
Buck Sexton or
But this is the monopoly at work.
right.
I mean, drying up all of the opposing voices until there are none.
Yeah.
This is something that's traditionally, again, this is not a free and fair and open marketplace.
Right.
Like this kind of thing is destroying what left of media there is.
Right.
Because radio, again, to your point, was traditionally one of the last bastions of not just pure leftism.
Right.
It was actually pretty wide open.
Right.
So
Well, and radio is also a dying medium.
it is. And it is certainly the next, the new frontier that we're in, and especially when it talks about big tech and, platforms, deplatforming and censorship or free speech there. But still, this is kind of a little bit of it feels like a little bit of a whimper because, again, it is a dying medium, but it's still a big, because there are a lot of people who still rely upon that. There are a lot of people who still hear that. And this
Right.
is one more, way that it will just lock, stock, go the same. You've seen those videos, the crazy stuff with local news, all using like the same script.
Yeah.
This is one more of those things. Just knock the second largest broadcast. This is terrifying to have a singular voice at the head of so much. It's
Right.
just terrifying. It shouldn't be that way.
No.
So there's an honorable. Was that now? But by the way, was that your honorable mention? And then you moved into a second one.
Yeah, the second one was the
The second one was okay. That's what I thought.
the Russia thing.
So I'll do the second. The Russia everywhere. So the second one that I want to talk about, because we were originally going to talk about, and we might at some point later, another church shooting took place this weekend down at Lakewood Church, which is Dallas, right?
Oh, I thought that was Houston.
It's Houston.
Yeah.
Joel Osteen's massive mega church, 17,000 seat auditorium. An individual walked in, opened fire with a rifle, was shot by 2 off-duty police officers. But there's been more questions than answers for me in this because the news just went silent.
Right.
But apparently it was an individual that went by 2 different names,
Right.
was technically, I think, female, but had transgender leanings and wanted to associate with a male name.
Pro-Palestine.
But there was a pro-Palestine message written on the gun. Like it did not fit the mold of this is the right-wing wacko that we would like to proselytize the world all over, that we got to get rid of guns. This was one
Right.
of the lefties, and a little kid is in the hospital as a result of it. So that is something we might get into at a different point, because this is now 2 transgender-linked shootings, but this is
This is the third.
This is the third. You're right.
Yeah.
This is the third. That's a whole, I think, topic in and of itself. That was originally one of the ones we were going to talk about, but I think we might save that. But the second topic that I wanted to talk about this week was.
Well, there was also another shooting yesterday.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You have more info. I remember seeing about that, but I was buried in something.
Yeah.
What was that?
And it was at the Chiefs celebration in Kansas City.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think 1 person was killed, 22 were injured. They haven't released the name of the suspect, but
We don't know anything about that one yet, do we?
but the only thing I found interesting about it is that Biden immediately called for gun control after that one. But I was trying to find Biden's statements about the
there was nothing.
pro-Palestinian terrorist attacking a Christian church in Texas. Nothing. He's because the link
That's
is
right.
obvious there. It's like, okay, transgender ideology, pro-Palestine, radical leftists. These people are getting more violent, but the obvious link there isn't, oh, guns are bad. It's like, okay, these people are deranged and should be put in jail. But when it's against the beloved parade for the Chiefs, I mean, like, Biden immediately turns it into a political thing.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It was very. You're right. I remember that because I was looking for that. This has been a wild week.
Yeah.
A lot of things
happened.
A lot of things, which is why we decided we just had to go this direction rather than one big giant topic for caucus. But there was an immediate response from the White House on that one, as you would expect. Democrats calling for gun control. I saw none of that on Sunday. It just went silent.
Right,
it
because
was very strange.
It's harder for the political message to blow back here than it is for the other one.
Oh yeah, you know that, and I know that, but it's very revealing when it actually happens and everyone can get to see it. Now, will everyone see it or not? That's up to you. You got to make sure that people see and understand that this is a politicized issue because this is one of the ones that worries me. More and more people don't understand guns because they weren't raised with guns in the home. We are a much more modern, urban society, and that's just been not the case for a lot of people. Even though we have more guns and more gun owners in America than ever before, and our population is growing, that one's one that a lot of people just have this, ooh, yeah, I don't know about it, so it kind of scares me, and they kind of get predisposed to just, well, that makes sense. We should just go ahead. And it's like, but no, these people are so disingenuous. There's no safety threat so much as there is a political point that they're trying to hit. So that one's one that we're going to have to tell people about. But that's the honorable one. The other thing that happened this week, and I guess what we'll close on here, was Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was impeached by the House.
Yeah.
214 to 213, razor thin. 2 Republicans weren't there to vote. 3 of them voted against the impeachment.
Get those guys out. If they're in your district, look it up. Get them out of there.
And I had the names pulled up. It was a very interesting. It's Ken Buck from Colorado, Tom McClintock from California, who we've talked to him on stuff before. So this is a very interesting list. I haven't quite gone in to figure out what it is. And the Gallagher from Wisconsin. These are the 3 that voted no on this. But this one is such an obvious. I mean, the reactions from Border Patrol. There was a bunch of stuff in the Daily Caller, and I'll put it in because some of it's not exactly air friendly. I'll let you read it if you'd like. But they had a bunch of anonymous Border Patrol agents responding to him being impeached. And the general overwhelming feeling was good.
Yeah.
Good. Because this guy's a hack. He's a political hack. He's not doing his job. He's not letting us do our jobs. It's just a giant mess, and it's being done on purpose. This is one of the biggest moments out there in America. Don't see what's going on, that there's a willful negligence, willful ignoring of the laws at the border in order to cause chaos. This goes across everything. Like crime rates continue to go, drug rates continue to go. The job recovery numbers are nuts. The new job recovery stats that we saw, all these jobs added in the last quarter. The fourth quarter of 2023, that increase came about, the 2.7 million additional individuals joining the workforce, because of the 2.9 million legal or illegal immigrant jobs that were added. And there was actually a decline of 183,000 native-born American jobs. So if you look at the stats, and I'll link this is from Center for Immigration Studies. The reason the jobs numbers they keep, which of course these are all kind of phony baloney numbers to an extent, the reason the job numbers keep going up isn't because more Americans are finding jobs, it's because more illegal and legal immigrants coming in at low-wage workers are coming into those roles, and we just have an open border. This isn't how a nation works.
Right.
You can't do this. No nation can function like this.
Right.
It's not caring because it crashes the economy, and even the people who came in looking for a job and got a job now are out of a job because we've crashed the economy. This isn't how it works.
Right.
And yet, it is willfully being ignored, and finally, it won't mean anything, I don't think. Do you think that here's my question for you. Does the impeachment of Mayorkas actually amount to anything, or was it symbolic and it's over?
The border's not closing until Trump's back in office. There's no way that the border's going to close till Trump's back in office.
I agree with that. Sorry, I agree. No.
Yeah.
That's it though. But this happened. This is a big deal, and if you look at the response to it, it is so. Again, this is just one of those, like, the curtain is open just a little bit in this area, and you have to wonder, why in the world are we ignoring? Why isn't there this massive public outcry and churning? Of course, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Does that actually happen? I think it does. I think that actually drives public policy. Public opinion drives public policy, but when public opinion goes quiet, public policymakers do whatever they want. And that is the mode we're in right now. So this is a year to do something about it. This is a year to send overwhelming opinion and overwhelming votes over these issues that are so blatantly obvious. This group of people that wants to keep power for themselves and doesn't even bother enforcing the main laws that keep this country whole.
Right. Yeah.
What you got?
I mean, there's got to be a change. I mean, I don't have anything to disagree on.
That's it. I mean, this is just, it's shocking to me that this just crashes with a thud. That the House impeaches someone and we're not going to hear about it. And this speaks to the breathless one-sidedness of the news media, that we covered the Trump impeachments, which were so hasty and without any kind of evidence put forward. We covered these just endlessly as if it were the Olympics. And this gets not a single word, and yet it actually comes with papers and with evidence and with just the abject humanitarian crisis at our southern border.
Well, the liberal media is also running out of people to talk about it. I mean, they've lost like 500 people have been fired in the last month or so. You know, which I think is a good thing. I mean, that'll affect the narrative machine, as Ed calls it. You know, that's a pretty. They're losing a lot of foot soldiers, and in journalism, especially like high level journalism, like Washington Post, New York Times, these you know, opinion makers. That is a lot of foot soldiers to lose.
It really is. A change is coming.
Thank goodness. Learn to code, you people. We just got banned from X for saying that, but you know, they learn to code. You know, get a real job. Writing about, you know, how your Sagittarius astrology sign affects your dog's view of Trump. Like, no, you get a real job. Get out of here. Get out of this country. Anyway, yeah.
There you heard it. Heard it from the man himself.
Hate liberal journalists.
We there is a change coming, but this is why platforms like this are important. Why platforms like Rumble are important. Why platforms that we're moving out to are important. Why shows like this and all the others, the Pro America Report, everything. Because it is there will be turnover because the foot soldiers are unimportant on that side because the agenda is the only thing that matters. Pushing the narrative and doing it effectively, cleanly, meanly, and everything else that they can think of with an ly adverb at the end. Nothing is about the truth, and everything is about the truth. This is why Tucker is so important in this moment in America, because he's not trying to give us answers. He's trying to ask questions. And more Americans need to have the question asked publicly so that they can come up with the answers. But that's a twofold. We need the people in power. We need the people with megaphones, which this is a megaphone, small as it is, which is why you're liking and sharing and subscribing, going to the phyllisschlafly.com website, signing up for the emails is important because it all starts somewhere. But as important as it is that the people with megaphones of any size speak the truth, it is equally important that the American populace stop and actually think about those questions and try to answer them themselves again.
Yes.
That lazy muscle needs to get back into gear.
Yes.
All of these things that we're talking about, these 50, 60 years ago in America would have just been cataclysmic. Like, I think it would be unconscionable that all of these things, which are scandalous things, would be happening at once and receiving so little attention from the American public. And the American public had plenty of extra things to do, not just monitoring their government. Now we can actually do it from our phone and watch the news.
Right.
And yet we are more distracted and uncaring and apathetic than ever before. That has got to change. You and I and you and I have got to snap people out of this.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's not going anywhere.
Yes. Which is why you need to share this. You need to like this, you need to subscribe so it amplifies us more so we can get our questions and the things we're finding out to more people. That's why you need to go to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up so you can get the full roundup of this information that we're bringing. Because, you know, like we always say, we don't bring the answers, we like to start conversations. And but we want, when you go out into the world, we want you to have informed conversations, which is why, you know, you need this evidence that we're bringing to you for free because we care and because we care about this country, and you should too.
Go read a book. We'll see you next week. Thursday, noon, another Unauthorized Caucus. Have a good week, everybody.